Hello and welcome to It's Only Electric. I guess you all already know what this is, but this is the updated Tesla Model 3. It's the Highland version, made in Giga Shanghai, all-wheel drive, long range. So this is the car with the longest possible range for the Model 3, with an estimated WLTP range of 678 kilometers. That's a really efficient car given the battery size around 80 kilowatts of gross capacity. Impressive. When it comes to size, it's a bit longer than the older version. So this one measures 4.72 meters compared to 4.69, and the exact difference is actually 26 millimeters longer. And I think it's due to a bit more overhang in the front and maybe some of the redesigned features at the rear. It does 0 to 100 in 4.4 seconds and has a top speed of 201 kilometers per hour. So the top speed is actually lower than on the other car, and that's of course to be able to save energy and drive more efficient. So this is one of the parts where the Model 3 has gone through the biggest change, and that's the front spoiler and the frontal design. Let's start with the spoiler. Big difference, a lot more sleek and less detailed than the older version. Also the headlights, thinner headlights, a bit longer, and totally new design on those. So this car actually has a lower drag coefficient than the older Model 3 that actually had one of the lowest drag coefficients on the market. But this one actually beats the old version, and that's pretty amazing. And that's really helping to increase the efficiency of the car. Let's check the back. Another big overhaul is actually the rear end of the Model 3. And you see it clearly by looking at the taillights. That's maybe the most prominent change. Newly designed taillights split into two parts, almost like a C. When it comes to the design, a bit more modern, if you ask me. Fits a bit more into 2024. Also, the Tesla logo is now replaced with the Tesla text instead. I think this is a better looking design than the old car. What do you think? Let's check the inside of the boot, because the boot capacity has actually went up with almost 30 liters. So now 593 liters compared to 560 some. So also some minor redesigns here at the back to give us some more space. When it comes to other practical aspects of the Model 3 Highland, you can equip this one with the tow hitch, but also have foldable seats split into 60 and 40. So that's not a change compared to the older version. I wish Tesla would have gone for a 40-20-40 split for a load capacity in the middle, but unfortunately not. And of course, as always, a lot of space underneath. And on top of that, a lot of space in the frunk. Let's check the frunk. So the frunk actually adds 88 liters of extra boot capacity, and some changes here. Looks to be some changes to the struts, and also the washer fluid seems to be moved from the top to the entry of the bonnet. Otherwise, works and looks the same as the old car. So the setup for this current car, it's running on the Nokian R5 Hakkapeliitta tires. That's studless Nordic winter tires. 18-inch wheels, 235/45 for the tire profiles all around. Another change I just noticed seems to be an update here on the front door. And as you see here, there is a hole or a fitting for a metal bar on the door. I don't know exactly why this is here, but for me, this seems to be safety related. So the Highland is said to be up to 30% more silent than the older version, and that's due to different factors. One seems to be double paned insulation glass windows at the rear and also at the front, and that will of course help to reduce road noise during highway driving. Also seems to be some changes when it comes to the insulation in the car. But we are going to test that, and to be able to pick up this car, I actually brought a Model 3 from 2020 to be able to feel the differences. So I just drove that car. Now I'm going to test this one and feel and see and measure the noise level and see if this one is more silent and how the suspension compares to the older version. Let's jump in and check the interior updates first before we drive away. The back seat has also gone through a slight update. One thing is the new perforated back bench. I think it gives me a good support, and it also feels like it's a bit raised. Now I'm pretty tall, so I'm 6'3" or 193 centimeters. So for me, almost no backseat is a good backseat. But this one seems to give me decent headroom. I'm not touching the glass roof. I have 2 fingers of space left after stretching out. I have a hard time fitting my feet underneath the front seats, and not that good of a thigh support, not for me. But it seems like the positioning of the back seat is a bit higher than on the older version. The biggest update here in the back seat is, of course, the doors. Big updates, because now you have ambient lighting at the back, and it's a lot of good materials here on the door sides, the door panels. And you have the most exciting news, at least if you ask me, that's the screen in the back seat. Let's have a look at the screen. So the rear screen placed here at the back seat is 8-inch and focusing on comfort and media controls for the rear seat passengers. So as you see here, you can control, turn on and turn off the seat heating at the back. Also control the front seat. You can actually move the front passenger seat to the front to give you some extra space and leg room at the back. So you can also control things like the climate control here at the back. Underneath the screen you have a digital ventilation, so you can turn that on here from the back and adjust the angle on each side to control the flow of the air in a nice way. You also have some media controls like playing Netflix movies here at the back. That's really nice. And 2 USB-C ports underneath here at the bottom. So all in all, a convenient feature, and I know that my kids would love this feature, would love to have a screen at the back seat. Really adds luxury and comfort to the back seats, and I think that's really raising the game for this price point of a car and a mid-size sedan. Really nice add-on for the Highland version. I have a very limited time with this car, only a couple of hours, so I have been driving it a bit to just get an understanding. And as I mentioned earlier, I have actually brought my neighbors and friends Model 3 long range all-wheel drive 2020 model, so it's a couple of years old, but I wanted to take that one, drive it just before this one, because I want to try to explain and express the differences when it comes to driving feeling. That's a difference. That's the speed limit warning, the new EU regulations. You can switch that noise off. It actually warns you when you drive a bit too fast, a bit over the speed limit, gives you a couple of beeps. That's possible to turn off. You just press that warning sign, and when it turns up, a very easy solution to turn that off and to get rid of that annoyance. And well, on the inside and in the front, there is really big differences. I mean, the dash is totally redesigned. It's Spartan and very sleekly designed, kind of a Scandinavian look to it as the old one, but this one is a notch up. And as you see, there's a mix of materials here at the front, so soft touch. The whole dashboard is actually soft touch materials, the built-in ventilation. On top of that, you have some integrated fabric covering the air ventilation, digital air vents, so we adjust the airflow as the old car on the screen. You adjust the direction and the flow depending on your liking. But about the dash, this one looks a bit more modern, a bit more sleek than the old one. Also probably cheaper to build than the old one, but I don't mind that because I feel that the look and the feel of it is better. Moved further on top of the dash to the windshield, it's a built-in ambient lighting, and that ambient lighting is actually going the whole way through the front area of the dashboard, all the way over the door sides, as you see here, continuing and also continuing to the back seat as I just showed you. That's a really nice addition. I really like the addition of ambient lighting because I think that's something that has been missing for a while when it comes to Tesla. Now to another very important change. There is no stalks. So I need to turn on the turn indicator by using the buttons on the left side of the steering wheel. I haven't been driving this car for that long, just a couple of hours, but still I managed to get used to it. I mean, if you jump into this car immediately after have driven a car with stocks, like I did, the Model 3, the older version, then it takes like a couple of times before you get used to it, because in more stressed situations you will be looking for the stock on the left side, but you get used to it fast. I see two downsides with the turn signals on the steering wheel. The first one is when you switch lanes on the highway, you really need to turn on the indicator, and after you have done that you need to turn it off by pressing it again, otherwise it will continue blinking. The other problem I have is that as now, when I use and turn the car and the steering wheel is not straight, then I need to search for the turn indicator. It's really hard to turn it off or turn it on when you are in a turn. So for instance, now when I turn right here, it's a bit harder to turn it off because I'm used to do it with my left hand. So now I'm gonna do a U-turn, and I want to try to turn off the turn indicator whilst turning, and then it's not on my left hand side anymore, it's up here, and then I need to turn it off if I need to do that. That's probably not the most common use case, but it still happens, and it has happened for me several times now. That will be the biggest downsides by having the stocks, the turn indicators on the steering wheel instead of physical stocks. The other big change is the drive mode selector. So instead of having that as a stock on the right side, it's also removed, very empty here. You have it to the left on the screen, to the most further to the left, and there you can swipe to put in drive forward, swipe downwards for entering reverse mode, and press the top to park it. But you almost never need to use the park function, the park button, because you just open the door and jump out, and the car fixes that for you. So that's it's not that often you actually change the gear. It's most oftenly when you're parking the car or entering your garage. It's those kind of situations when you need to switch to drive mode. So it's actually not that often as you think. So I think I can live with that function. It takes a bit time to get used to, but after one day of driving, you will probably get used to it and not miss the traditional way of switching a gear or using the turn signals. If the screen fails for some reason, there is a backup for switching the gear or drive mode, and that's on top of your head where you have the interior lighting and the hazard lights. I understand the implementation of it. It's of course most likely to save money and to make the car more uncomplicated, but in this case I think it works. The only thing is that one is So now I'm actually going to jump back into the old Model 3 again and try to explain the differences when it comes to noise, suspension, and the driving comfort of the car. So immediately when I jumped into this car and started driving it, I felt that the suspension feels a bit more comfortable and silent when you drive it. Especially the cabin noise level seems to be a lot improved if you compare it to the old version. This also seems to be on par with, or maybe even more silent than the Model Y currently. And that's good, because that car is one of the more silent cars when it comes to Tesla cars. And sedans should be more silent than SUVs. So I really think this is more silent. And I'm gonna measure the sound and compare the noise level between this car and the Model 3 2020 model that I have outside. And I for sure already now can tell that there is a big difference when it comes to cabin noise. Let's jump into the old car and see how it goes. So I'm heading back home, and I'm now sitting in the old Model 3 from 2020. And as I mentioned, I brought this car to be able to measure and to feel the differences when it comes to comfort and cabin noise and driving dynamics between the two cars. And my immediate feeling is, of course, that this one is a lot more noisy. So the Highland version really pulls out a lower cabin noise. So it's really in line with what Tesla states. The Highland is a lot more silent, and as you know, Tesla is not known for doing and making really silent cars. They are a bit to the more noisy part compared to other premium brands. But I must say that the Highland really surprised me because they have managed to lower the noise with a great amount. I have measured the noise on the same roads in a couple of different speeds, and this is the result. And as you see, there is a big bunch of decibels in between the cars. It's almost 4 to 5 decibel more silent than this car is. And yes, the comparison is not that fair because, I mean, the 2023 model of the Model 3 is probably a bit more silent than this one. This is a used car, of course, but it's still running the same type of tires, so Nokia and Hakka studless winter tires, and the same width on the tires, so 235s all around. Even if it's not fully fair, it gives you a good understanding of the difference. I mean, the Highland is a lot more silent, and this is the proof for that. It's not only my own ears and my own feeling, it's also measured with the microphone. So there you have it. Highland is a lot more silent. When it comes to comfort and suspension, the suspension in this one doesn't feel bad at all. Now this one is running on 19-inch wheels instead of 18, so it's a bit more rough riding on this one. But the Highland is really refined. It's a really refined comfort on that car, and that goes for all aspects. The suspension feels better, more sophisticated, more silent, more comfortable, doesn't make any strange noises when I tested it, and it's also more soft and well cushioned compared to the suspension in this car. So both the noise level, the insulation, soundproofing is better, but also the suspension seems to be upgraded and better than in the old cars. I didn't have time to do all the tests I usually do. Normally I do range tests, I do more detailed reviews of the cars. But as you know, Tesla, at least here in Sweden, doesn't provide us any press cars. This was the only time I was able to crank out at this moment. Hopefully I will get more encounters with the Highland. I most certainly will. And at that point I will do a proper range test on my test cycle. But what I can say about the consumption is that it is more efficient. It's hard to compare with this one, wouldn't be fair, because this one doesn't have any heat pump and it's 0 degrees outside. This is the prime time for heat pumping, so that would be an unfair comparison. But it seems to be 5 to 10% more efficient than the old Model 3. Because when I look at the consumption, it is very efficient. So if you're looking for an efficient car, stop looking. You won't find anything that's more efficient than the Model 3 Highland. That's almost certain and impossible to do. So we'll try to summarize my experience with the Highland. This is a great update. I mean, as a previous owner of a Model 3 Performance, now I own a Model Y, before that a Model S, so I know a lot about Teslas and their driving dynamics and the build qualities. This is really a step in the right direction. This facelift is big, it's really big, and it's not only on the outside, it's especially on the inside. I mean, the fit and finish, all the materials, the build quality is on a whole nother level than the older car. And you feel it in all aspects. And today I actually tried 2 cars, not only the white long-range all-wheel drive version, I also tried the standard range rear-wheel drive version to be able to compare them a bit. And if you don't care about acceleration times and the premium sound system and all-wheel drive, I think it's a no-brainer to go for the standard range car, because the price difference is almost 10,000 euros or 100,000 Swedish crowns. That's a big difference. And that one actually has 550 kilometers of range with the 18-inch wheels compared to 680. But I mean, in everyday driving, the standard range car can be charged to 100% all the time. That means that 550 kilometers is a actual range you can utilize all the time. And this 680 kilometers is only usable for certain long trips. Otherwise, you will charge it to 80%. If you charge it to 80%, the long range version, you get a range of 540 kilometers. So guess what? The standard range car in everyday driving has 10 kilometers more range than the long range version. That's a good point to think about before you order your Model 3. Today, I would go for the standard range version with rear-wheel drive. I mean, you have enough of power. That one is fun to drive. It doesn't feel slow. Plenty of range and a lot cheaper. I think that's the sweet spot. That's all for today. I had a really limited amount of time with the cars, so I still hope that I could give you and provide you some good information about the Highland and that it was helpful for future decisions or just pure enjoyment. Don't forget to become a backer. That's the new members function I have just released, and that's the best way of supporting my work. And you get access to perks like videos before everyone else. So this one, for instance, is released for backers first and then to the public. And that's my way to thank my current members and my future members. So please check that out. Other good ways to support my work is to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And as I always say, stay electric. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.